the reason that you are all here is to hear Devin C. Hughes. Devin is joining us here from, he's in California. I think many of us wish we were in California today. It's been fun hearing from him, reading some of his stuff out there, and he is looking forward to joining us tonight with just some awesome things that he's going to share about building a happier, healthier culture at home. He's written lots of books, looks like 21-ish books. He's spoken in 15 countries. He's captivating, he's engaging, and he is here and ready to talk to you guys tonight. He's his wife and 4 daughters, a couple of dogs, and he's got a great message for us tonight. So everybody, like, thumbs up or something, hands up, shake them around. Welcome, Devin C. Hughes.
Wow, awesome sauce, huh? Love that. Everybody excited to be here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Can I see some jazz hands? I was a dance dad. Yes, yeah, I'm multi-dimensional Renaissance man, aren't I? All right, we're going to share my screen here because I got some things that I'd like to just share. I don't want to preach. I'm not Abraham Lincoln, and this isn't Gettysburg. So let's do this. Can everybody see my screen? Hopefully, okay. See this wonderful couple. Love that. All right. So for some of you, you don't have your video on. So I'm going to assume it's a bad hair day like this. So if you don't have your video on, I'm just going to presume it's one of those days. If you do have your video on, it tends to look like this. Jim, I see you combing your hair, Jim. I caught you there. That's awesome, Jim. Awesome sauce. All right. So, hey, I know we're a little distant. Although we're physically distant, we don't need to be socially distant. Can everybody put up your right hand, please? Just humor me. Put up your right hand. And right now, give me a little high five. Boom. All right. That just happened. Boom. All right. Awesome. Great. Love that. So I've been spending the last 10 years in studying and researching the tenets of positive psychology. For those of you who know it, fantastic. For those of you that don't, essentially it means how do human beings flourish? The science of happiness. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, I want you to fill in the blank. I am happiest at work. I am happiest at home. When? So let's do the home part. I just wanted you to think about the work. I am happiest at home when? I want you to chew on that question for a second, and we're going to do things a little differently. My colleague, Andy, is going to throw you into some breakout groups. And I just want you to have a quick conversation with some other folks. I am happiest at home when, and I just want you to fill in that sentence. So the first rule, we're going to talk about positive psychology practices, is just talking about it, right? Talking about it. If you want to be happy, sometimes we just got to talk about it. There's different things that light different people up. And being expressive or create space and time to talk about the things that make you happy at home and or work and personal. Now, we're going to keep going. I got so much more information here. This is going to be very, very interactive. I hope that's okay. So we actually are going to talk to people. I know that doesn't happen much. Now, this is our new normal. I'm not going to beat the drum. I'm not here to pick a side. I just want to put context to where we are. There's a lot of angst in the system. You got me? If you live on Earth, there's a lot of angst, right? So this is something I do every day. I'm going to give you lots of interventions today. I did it today. I call it my 3-word check-in. I am, and I did this morning, based on where I am right now, I am hopeful. What are you? Based on where we are. What are you feeling right now? How about you, Jim? Do you mind sharing?
I guess I'm a little stressed, and I don't think that's the angle you were going for.
No. There's no wrong. It's just to do a check on how you're feeling. Because if you're a little depleted, then maybe you need to work on yourself a little bit that day.
Yeah, I think that's good advice for Jim. But yeah, just stressed with the election coming up. I'm, an election judge, and went and did a little training with that to learn how to deal with people who are not going to be pleasant.
Yeah, so again, this is no Pollyanna. Like if you're feeling stressed or a little bit of angst, then maybe I need to pivot that day and do something a little bit different. So again, we're going to talk about it. That's okay. Now, that aside, too often when I do this work, people ask me how old I am. Maybe it's my youthful looks. I don't know what it is. It's my energy. It's my sense of humor. So in lieu of you wondering how old I am, I want to see if you can figure it out. It's kind of like a suspense, kind of like a surprise. You ready? We're going to take a walk down memory lane here. You ready? Here we go. That was my first smartphone. Anybody remember those? Yeah, we had to put our finger in like this. And they had to, like, it was the struggle. Like, really? Yeah, that was my first smartphone. That was a good meal in my house. Yeah, we used to eat those. Can you imagine that now, trying to get teenagers to eat a fruit? Like, really? As if? That was a good meal. That's how I used to listen to music. I used to tape off the radio. I had one of those big boom boxes, you know what I mean? It was, yeah. That was Netflix for me. Did anybody remember that on a Friday or Saturday night? You would go and you try to rent your favorite movie and like it wasn't there. And the look on your face, like your whole night was wrecked because that, wasn't there. That was Netflix. This is my favorite TV show. Does anyone remember this? Oh man, I had an active social life, didn't I? When that came on, I was like, I used to love that. That was good. So that was my deal.
The Love Boat.
Look at you, Barb. Yes, The Love Boat. That was great TV before the reality show killed TV. Right? So that was great. Now, we just did was something we call savoring. Something that a lot of people who stay in a more optic frame of mind do something a little bit different than other people. They savor positive experiences. What if every week we created a little space to savor all the good things that happened this week? Would it matter? Could we do it? Should we do it at home? So I want to ask you, what are you most grateful for during the pandemic? Could you even find gratitude in the midst of a pandemic? What comes to mind, Christy, you want to share with me? I know, I see you.
Oh yeah. Well, I've gotten to spend more time with my kids and my family and my husband.
Love that. That's
home all the time now. So
yes,
so yeah.
I love that. Right? I used to travel before the pandemic. I've only had one road trip. I'm home for dinner every night now. There's a lot to be, if we look hard enough, we can find things to be grateful for too. And just things to be thinking about, even in the midst of all this chaos. Now, here's something else I do every day. And I'm just giving you little practices and tools. If they stick, great. Like, we know gratitude's a big deal. Well, this is something I do. I name one thing I'm content with or feel good about. Like something I'm reasonably feel good about, something I'm enthusiastic about, and just something I'm extremely thankful for. And I do it every day. I'm very intentional about filling my cup. Now, again, if you start your day with questions like this, could you start to prime your brain and your kids and your spouse and whomever, and start to get them to recognize that there are good things happening, even in what we call the new normal. So again, the challenge with all that is, folks, is this, because we have this. Does anybody know what this is? It's so problematic. No one's talking about it. It's everywhere, and I can't seem to get people to pay attention. Anyone know what GDD is? Jim, you look like a Renaissance man. You know? No? Cheryl knows, right? No, Cheryl? No. All right. What is it, Cheryl? Do you know?
I'm going to take a guess. It's a gratitude deficit disorder.
Oh, look at Cheryl. Look at the crowd waving her. No, my. All right. If you need her on one of those game shows with Regis or whomever, like, wow. Because I would argue, look, we got more people focused on everything that isn't, that is. All right? And I think that's pretty obvious. You don't have to look too hard to find that. Now, we're in the new normal. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I hear it. Did you know right now 65% of Americans spend more time with their computers than their spouses? Wow. Ouch. That hurts. Yeah. We have a loneliness epidemic in this country. 40% of Americans right now, this was pre-COVID, I haven't seen the new data, say that they are lonely. Listen to this for a second. Hopefully you can hear. Andy, give me a thumbs up that sounds good, okay?
New article, Morthy writes, loneliness is a growing health epidemic. He calls on companies to make fostering social connections a strategic priority. Dr. Vivek Morthy joins us back at the table. It's good to see you again.
Thanks, great to be here.
Now, this is a topic that you say that you know personally about. You said that you were a shy, lonely kid, that people didn't even know that about you.
That's true. You know, in fact, it's something I've never even talked to my own family about. But when I was a child, I was very shy. It was hard for me to make friends, and I felt lonely a lot. But I felt ashamed to tell that to people.
Why the shame? Yeah.
Well, for many people and for myself, when I was a child, admitting that you're lonely is essentially equivalent to admitting that you're not worthy of being loved. That's really what underlies this stigma around loneliness.
So why is loneliness now an epidemic?
Well, we are recognizing that loneliness is a lot more prevalent than we thought it was, but the data is also showing that there are more adults who admit to being lonely now than just 2 decades ago. And there are several possible reasons for this. Number one, people are more mobile now than they ever have been. People move away from their communities and their home. There are record numbers of people who are actually living alone. But we also know that technology has had a potential role here. Technology can help or hurt. It's simply a tool. But for too many people, technology has led to substituting online connections for offline in-person connections.
Wow, huh? It's not just the US. The UK now has a minister of loneliness. Uh-oh. Doctors in the UK, primary care doctors, are now prescribing social activities to patients as an alternative to medicine. Could you imagine going to see your doctor and the script says go hang out with and talk to human beings? This is where we are, folks. I just want to give you a little bit of context. I was in the UK before COVID and I noticed these in some different towns. You know what this is? A chat bench. They hang these signs and it encourages strangers to talk to each other. Wow. Without a device. Remember when we used to talk to each other? This is where we are and who we are now. But it's not just us, whether it's Australia or Japan. This was pre-COVID. We're in a global epidemic right now of isolated, alone, disconnected, polarized, and you wonder why we are and we feel like we do right now, among a variety of the different reasons. Now, I keep going here. When they ask teenagers to select their favorite communication method, this is the first generation ever that selected texting over face-to-face communication. They would rather text or Instagram or Snapchat than talk to a human being. This is, again, just context to where we are. So I got a quiz for you. Cheryl didn't tell you there's going to be a quiz because you couldn't study, because I know how you are. You would have done all the research and stayed up all night last night. But I've got you here. You ready? Here we go. There's no way, to be honest, I'll read it aloud. The doors open wide to the elevator. You enter, and they close behind you. As the elevator begins its ascent, you realize it's just you and one other person who you don't know taking this ride. The silence soon grows so uncomfortable. I ask you, what's your go-to move? A, B, C, or D? Be honest. What do you do? Eileen, be honest. Pre-COVID, what would you do typically? Can't hear you, Eileen. You're on mute.
C.
C.
Or A.
So you make brief eye contact. What is brief? Like this? Like little, all right, now again, there's no judgment. Now again, some of you, I wonder. Now, when I did this, depending on what the different generation, you could guess a lot of people picked B, which was stare at their phones. We know that happens. Now, why is this fascinating? Again, I could go for hours on this research. Think about it. Now, look at this is another experiment in the University of British Columbia ran where they had people go into a coffee shop. They had one group of customers go in and not say anything to anybody, just buy coffee and leave. Okay, it was a transaction. They had another group go in and strike conversations with the cashier, the barista, customers. What was fascinating is that the folks who had chit chat walked out dramatically happier than folks who didn't have chit chat. Does that surprise you? So sometimes we discount that little chit chat in the supermarket or in line. Chit chat or connection matters, and it's even harder right now wearing a mask and being socially distant, which is fascinating to where we are. So real quick, if you could sit and talk with anyone on this bench for an hour, that means anyone on earth, okay, that you have a relationship with, not a celebrity crush, okay, not that kind of workshop. All right, so if you could sit and talk with anyone on this bench who's still on earth, whom you have a relationship with, who would it be? I'm going to give you 10 seconds to process that. I want you, who comes to mind right now who you'd love to sit on that bench right now and have a just great, meaningful conversation? And I don't want you to tell me, just think about it. Who would it be? Someone still here with us who you got a relationship with. I know besides me, that's obvious, right? Because I know that's like, so like, really? besides me, okay? Jim, I know that was top of mind for you. All right, Mary, you got somebody? Mary Kay?
Yeah, I'd chat with my son.
All right, okay, Mary, thank you for, all right, so now what I want you to do, real quick, stay with me.
Okay.
I want all of you, because Mary's leading from the front. Mary said her son. I want you to grab your device. That's my smartphone. I'm old school. I want you to grab yours, and I want you to send that person an email or text and let them know you were thinking about them right now. Although we are physically distant, we don't need to be socially distant. I want you to send that person a text or email right now and let them know you're thinking about them. That you love them, you appreciate them. I keep going, you can do this. In other words, I want you to share a little bit of hope or inspiration or positive affirmation with another human being just because. If we're going to change the narrative around loneliness, if we're going to change the narrative around being disconnected, why don't we start here right now in this district with us? So in your own authentic way, I want you to let another human being know that you're thinking about them, that you believe in them. And I was waiting for my phone to vibrate, Jim. I guess the tower is it's probably a little bit delayed. I know, it's, yeah. Dinner time and all that stuff. It's awkward, I get it. Christy, you all good? Christy Happ? Omar's good. All right, everybody good? All right, fantastic. So well done, well done. Now, I'm not going to unpack all the research, which is where I spend most of my time, but I think it's important for us to know, beyond fame, beyond fortune, and beyond hard work, the common denominator for people who stay in a better place emotionally are relationships. The reason I say this is not to say the obvious, but it's harder in the new normal to create and sustain some of these relationships. It's not the number of people, it's the higher quality close connections. It's not only good for our health, it's good for our overall well-being and our brains. So again, for what that's worth, if you have 5 or more close friends, you're 60 times more likely to be happy. Now, I see some of you counting on your fingers right now. It's not awkward. I get it. You're like, eeny, meeny. Okay, well, you got some work to do then. You got some work to do. Now, that aside, I'm going to show a quick video. I think you may recognize this woman. I don't know, maybe you will. She's kind of a big deal. Let's watch.
The truth is, you don't have anything to give that you don't have. So you have to keep your own self full. That's your job. You know, one of my daughters is here today from Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy. Stand up today so everybody can see you. You're going to end your first year soon. Oh my God, it's first year. I say to my girls all of the time that your real work is to figure out where your power base is and to work on the alignment of your personality, your gifts that you have to give, with the real reason why you're here. That's the number one thing you have to do, is to work on yourself and to fill yourself up and keep your cup full. Keep yourself full.
Now I think that's our number one responsibility of a parent, to fill your cup first, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. Let me say that again. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And if you do not pour into your child's cup, you let the world fill it. All right, so just let that settle in. So I'm going to ask you, what's in your cup? And what are you doing to intentionally fill your cup? Have you done anything as a family during the pandemic to fill your cup in terms of well-being? I heard someone say that they're spending more time with their spouse. Love that. Maybe you're cooking more family meals. Maybe you're playing board games. Maybe you're going for a walk. Is any of this resonating at all? Have you started some new routines that you didn't? Those are all great examples of filling the cup. Because I'm going to imagine, as this continues to go on, hopefully not that much, but it looks like it's going to drag on, you having a full cup is absolutely going to matter to be the best version of you in whatever domain. Okay, so when I talk about filling your cup, these are the domains I'm referring to. I bet you're better at some than others. Some of us love the exercise. Some of us eat healthy or clean or whatever vernacular you use. Some of us are investing in other modalities to stay socially connected. And some of us are looking to alleviate stress. So when you're looking to fill your cup, this is what I'm referring to. Different opportunities for you to fill your cup and for you to fill your child's cup and folks in your circle. Now, I hope my man, Dr. Fauci, is wrong, but what if he's correct? What if we are dealing with this for another 15 or 16 months? Do you think having a full cup might kind of sort of matter, both at work and at home in the community? Yeah, I think so. So what now? Well, too many of us care more about our cell phone batteries than we care about our self-care. Have you seen the sense of angst and urgency when someone can't find a charger? I mean, they are diving out of the way. It's like Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom trying to find a charger. What if we had the same level of urgency about our self-care? What if we had the same level of urgency about our well-being? Would that matter? I think so. Now, that aside, we can rewire our brain, which is fascinating. But before I go there, be honest, and I'm not being crass. How many of us brushed our teeth today? Did anyone have to remind you? Did you have to put on your calendar, put a sticky note on your mirror, or have your next door neighbor knock on the window? All right, probably not, because you had something called hygiene. And someone introduced you to it many years ago, and you've probably been doing it. You're probably pretty good at it. All right? Well, I'm going to ask, how many of you have happiness hygiene? Wow. Uh-oh. Houston, we have a problem. All right, well, if you're going to be the best version of you, do you kind of sort of think that maybe you may want to think about some happiness hygiene, some well-being hygiene? All right, the well-being has to be not hopeful happenstance. It has to be an expected practice every day. Now, the good thing is you can rewire your brain. You can rewire your brain to help it become a little bit easier for you, to become a habit. What that means is you can teach an old dog new tricks. This is my old dog, and he learns new tricks all the time. Isn't he a pretty thing? You can teach an old dog new tricks. So, based on that concept, why and what does it look like? Let's listen.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road.
That's what I'm referring to. Now, 50% of your happiness is in your genes. You inherited it from mom or dad based on the current level of research. So if you're struggling, don't look at me, call mom and dad after the program. 10% are circumstances, global warming, pandemic, the economy, politics, the neighbor down the street, the things you don't control. Well, 40% are things that you can begin to rewire your brain. Call them practices, interventions, intentional activity, which is why this research is getting so much play. Now, for those of you familiar with Sean Achor and his work, there's a lot of opportunities to be happy, Again, here's our 5 habits to choose from in terms of filling your cup. Like gratitude, we did it earlier in the program, writing down 3 things you're grateful for. Journaling about 1 positive experience every day. Exercising for a minimum of 15 minutes, meditating for 2 to 3 minutes to start, and maybe doing a conscious act of kindness, 1 a day. Now, there's a variety of different ways. This is just a snapshot. When we talk about happiness hygiene, this is among the things that I'm talking about. So I was going to have you do it, but you guys would have got all the answers. Does anyone recognize this young lady? I want you to listen real quick, what she does every day.
When you wake up in the morning, first thing, write down 3 things you're grateful for, specifics.
Do you do that every day?
Every day. Really? Not the sunrise, not the, it has to be a specific.
Something different every day?
Think about like the guy who held the door when he had 3 bags in his hand and he could have let it swing. Something small and specific. Okay. After you write those 3 things, then you write down something great that happened in the last 24 hours.
Okay.
No matter how big or small. Something.
Okay.
That's 2 things, right?
Okay.
But it starts to change the way you think when you wake up. Instead of waking up going, oh God, your brain starts literally changing into 3 good things and 1 great thing. You're like, okay. Then you do exercise, 30 minutes if you can.
Okay.
Pray, meditate.
Okay.
And the last thing is 1 random act of kindness.
Oh, a week? A day?
A day.
No, Andy, a day, Andy. A week. I love Andy. So it's funny. I don't know Oprah and I don't know Hoda, but it's fascinating to me that these people who've achieved some level of success have some happiness hygiene. So now, not going to belabor the point. Happiness is an advantage. Happiness is a choice, and happiness spreads. Every outcome we can measure. For some of you who are looking and have high expectations for yourself and your kids, which you should, every outcome we can measure based on science improves when people are in a better place. To think about it, if I asked you right now, do you perform better when you feel better? Would you buy that? Of course, intuitively, we know it to be true. Well, the science clearly bears it. Do you think kids perform better in a classroom? Do you think athletes, musicians? Intuitively, we've known it. Well, the science is pretty clear. If you can help yourself and your kids and those you work with and care about and interact with be in a better place more days, outcomes improve. This is fascinating. I don't have time, but from the University of Kentucky, this is fascinating. They had nuns, and these nuns wrote diaries. It was called the Nun Study. There were some happy nuns and some unhappy nuns. Guess what? The happy nuns lived much longer than the unhappy nuns. Wow. Cause and effect between being in a better place and my health. Now, that aside, when we talk about happiness, I'm talking about any positive emotion. I want to broaden our definition. We call this the broaden and build theory. These are some emotions, or positive emotions specifically, that we need to start feeling more intentionally. Because we're not, every day is not joy, right? But could we be more intentional about hope and interest and curiosity and empathy and compassion, and being more intentional in trying to elicit these at our home and our workplaces? So the challenge is, we have this thing called destination addiction, this preoccupation that I'll be happy when the pandemic is over, when I have a new house or new car, new job, and we're always fixated on what's next. It's affliction right now. If you don't believe me, it goes something like this. If I work really, really hard, I'll be successful, then I'll be happy. If you want an example, does anyone remember this? This is a great example of it. The college admission scandal, right? Think that if I get my kid into the right school, then they'll be happy and they'll be successful, even though the brain works the other way around. If we can get your brain and your child's brain in a better place more often, success will follow. Success doesn't necessarily bring happiness. So that aside, as we move on here, what would happen if we switched this thinking, I ask? I don't want you to answer, but what if we began believing at home and in a community that well-being would lead to success, that success doesn't lead to well-being? Would things change? I don't know, for you to think about. So that aside, we got a short time left, but I'm going to share with you 5 things that you could think about to implement immediately to drive even more happiness hygiene at home. So I gave you some tools individually, and here's some things to do. 5 gratitude practices that I think, and these are ones that I've done and utilized with my own family. Number 1, daily gratitude sharing. My wife, when my kids were small, had this on the island. We know what this is, right? A sticky note. And we had this. It was called the Jar of Awesome. When the kids came home from school, there was a Sharpie there. They would write down the most awesome thing that happened that day, and they crumbled it up and they put it in the Jar of Awesome. I got 4 kids, my wife and I. That's 6 awesome things every day. At the end of the week, we had 42 awesome things. We sat down for Sunday dinner. My wife opened up the Jar of Awesome, and we literally rotated around the table and shared all the awesome things that happened in our family that week. Is that maybe something you might do? That's called savoring. Do you think you could find enough awesome things that happen in your family if you're more intentional to look for it? The gratitude journal. Got my kids' gratitude journal, just a small journal. Again, writing down 3 different things that you're grateful for, and each of us would have a little journal, just sharing things that we're grateful for. It sat next to my kids' bed. The next, a giving meal or a gratitude meal. My wife would create these prompts that would be on the table. Tell us something you're grateful for about the person across from you. Just elicit a response, and it would ask people, again, to share something that they're grateful for. Not over baking it. We all eat as a family, and if you have a prompt, sometimes it's easier. A gratitude walk. We're old school. We used to go for a walk as a family. Again, what if you went for a walk as a family and you just started to have a conversation about things that you're grateful for? And then finally, our kids are always on their phones. So we brought their phones and we had a gratitude phone challenge. Your task was to go out and take photos of things that you're grateful for, and then come back and share it with the family. If you hadn't noticed here, I'm being very intentional about creating activities or tools for the folks in my family to fill their cup. So I got some exciting news for all of you because we only have a few minutes left. I know you're all excited, I can tell. You probably didn't go to bed last night like Christmas Eve waiting for this workshop. I kind of have that impact on people, I've been told often. We have something rolling out here in the district called Optimistic Household. Your district, being in the upper 1% of school districts across the country, will be rolling this out. Again, a series of resources for you. Each module has activities, some which I just described, videos and quizzes and other activities to help drive optimism and gratitude right into your home. Because again, if you're not filling your kid's cup, you're letting the world fill it. And I don't think that's something that you want to do.